Welcome to PsychicBent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. Hi everyone, welcome back to PsychicBent. This week's episode, we are going to be re-airing an episode we had previously published called The Genes Have It. Many of our listeners enjoyed the episode where we had a conversation with my daughter Katrina, and we thought that we would go ahead and put that out now and re-air it so everyone can enjoy it again, and even our new listeners can enjoy the conversation that we had with Katrina. She is a director of musical theater, and she also helps at a high school and is the director there. She has dealt with the superstitions in theater, and she is a psychic. So we hope you enjoyed the re-airing of The Genes Have It.
Welcome back, listeners, to PsychicBent, and we have an exciting episode today. Today we have my niece joining us, Katrina. Welcome, Katrina.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Katrina had to get up early to do the podcast, so she's really loving us right now.
It wasn't too early.
She does have to work, everybody, so.
Don't we all? Today's episode, we're going to interview Katrina, and Katrina is going to talk to us about growing up with abilities in a house that is more open to abilities, I would say. Is that how you term it, Kim?
Yeah, I think so. It wasn't, oh, you're not seeing that kind of environment. It was a definitely, okay, let's go on.
So it was a different way than how we were brought up, obviously, and of course a different decade, so that would make a difference as well. But Katrina also directs musicals and plays and such, and so she spends a lot of time in theaters. And of course, I don't know if everybody is aware that most theaters are haunted. So I think we're going to get into that area as well. So, Kim, you want to start us off with grilling your daughter?
Sure. I do it every day, so why would this be any different?
Right.
So how you doing today, Katrina?
Oh, sleepy, but I'm okay.
All right. What do you remember from childhood that, now that you're an adult, that you have determined that might be psychic abilities and such? Do you remember things?
Oh, yeah. We had to talk about this the other day because I was like, I don't remember anything. What do you mean? But I do remember things, I promise. Like that huge sense of deja vu that you get when you're like, oh yeah, I've dreamt this or I've lived this before. That happened a lot when I was a kid. So that was definitely a big thing growing up that I remember. And now I'm like, oh, that was something psychic. Whether that was just premonition dreams or if it was, no, you've been here before, whatever spiritual wise you want to classify that as, that was a huge one.
That's definitely something that I also do a lot too.
Yeah, I still do it, but
Yeah.
it was a lot as a kid, I feel like. And on the topic of the dreams, just I remember having all kinds of dreams that I was like, oh, that's gonna happen. Like that's just real life right there. And then years later, even I'd be like, I knew this would happen.
I heard that a lot from you.
So you would dream something, and then years later it happened. So it wasn't like a immediate response. It was just something down the road.
Yeah, there were some that were immediate. Like I remember very vividly my art class, because you in elementary school you take a little art class because you got to have the arts. I was working on like a painting or something. And as I was doing it, I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is going to turn out like. It's like as soon as I got the color out, I was like, oh, yeah, this is the one. I know this one. It would be like a week after I dreamed it or something. But some of them would stretch for years, yeah.
Wow. That's where journaling really comes in handy. I don't think I would remember.
Well, that's where the deja vu comes in.
From the dreams aspect.
From the dream, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also hearing voices, not in my head or anything, but like externally hearing someone talk and being like, what was that? And nobody's there, or mom's downstairs, and hearing things like that.
That's always startling when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or you hear your name.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And you turn around and there's no one there.
Yeah. And now being an adult, some of that can be kind of creepy. It's like, oh, someone's in my house. But as, you know, as a kid, not really thinking about it like that, it was like, there's ghosts here.
I think as a kid, you think everybody does it. It's normal for you, so therefore
Yeah.
it's normal for everybody.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It definitely was like a normal occurrence more so than it should have been, I guess. But
Well, that's what I remember growing up. When something would happen, you just assumed everybody did it, or everybody could see the ghost, or everybody could do this. You know, you don't realize until people start telling you, no, that didn't happen. Like, okay, but it did.
Right. That's why a lot of times kids don't even myself don't realize that's what was happening until you're an adult and you realize and you do the research and you find out that oh, wait a minute, that happened to me as a kid. Oh, I'll be darned.
And you can put a name on it now, you know, a name to it.
yeah.
Which is comforting as an adult. I don't think as children we really care to put a title to it, but as adults we need a title to put on this.
Yeah, now as a child, she was coming up with all kinds of large words and phrases that were like, where on earth did this come from? And I finally asked her one day when she was probably 3, maybe 2, 3,
Maybe 4.
maybe 4 at the oldest. You were 4. I heard her talking upstairs in her room, and I called her downstairs and said, who are you talking to up there? And she was talking to her teacher. That's what she told me. And I asked her what she was doing, and she was doing formulations on her calculator, and she's tapping on this calculator like she was actually doing formulations on her calculator. And
Because most 3-year-olds say formulation.
right, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The whole conversation was...
I don't think they teach that on
weird.
Sesame Street.
No.
I don't remember if they do or not, but probably not.
Today, kids, we're learning formulation.
Formulations on our calculator. So I just figured, well, as long as this is an educational experience she's having, let's let it go.
Might as well.
Might as well go with it. Thank you, teacher.
Well, you know, it could have been a spirit guide. It could have been an entity. But obviously they didn't mean any harm. And why scare someone by freaking out going, you got what upstairs? Okay, teacher, good luck.
Yeah. Well, she ended up saying it was Mrs. Thomas. So it was somebody that I felt was actually educating her. Wanted her to be smart. Smarter than what she is.
We'll take help from anybody. Yeah? That's it, huh?
That's right. It's better than what I could teach her.
Katrina, remember the Force.
She was way above my level in her brilliance. So,
but you know, a lot of parents would be freaked out if their child's was using words that no one in the house was using. And, you know, a child of 3 is very limited on exposure to big words, you know, in a normal environment. And then to say, B, okay, well, this invisible lady's teaching me, which I'm sure was not invisible to Katrina.
I agree. How about you, Katrina?
I was 3, so I don't remember vividly if she was like looked real and I had like a physical appearance or anything for her. But I would agree.
So do you have any other experiences that you remember the happening? Do you remember the stairs incident?
Oh, yeah, I remember the stairs incident very vividly because I think, and this is just me reflecting on it as an adult, I think I might have like broke my tailbone when that happened.
You heard it.
It hurt for months. But I could have sworn it wasn't you behind me. I could have sworn it was my sister.
And she wasn't.
And she wasn't. But I was at the top of the stairs in my room because my room opened up just to the stairs that go downstairs. And I felt like someone pushed me. It I was sitting there at the top of the stairs and I was pushed down. And like I rolled, I hit the wall, I was on the ground, and I was crying and screaming because it hurt so bad. And I felt hands on me. Like I knew someone pushed me, and nobody pushed me because you wouldn't push me. You're my mother. And my sister wasn't there.
That was definitely a traumatic experience for you, though, as
Oh,
far
yeah.
as
Being pushed down the stairs by
something.
was
Yeah.
not fun. So.
Right.
Is that the incident, Kim, where you got angry and said you can't touch her? Is that the same story?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that is the same story.
Okay.
Right. Where I told them, you don't ever touch her again. You're not allowed to touch her.
Well,
After that,
pushing
yeah.
somebody down the stairs is not good. I don't think that was the teacher.
No.
No.
No. We all knew that wasn't the
No.
teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, these kind of situations would freak most people out, that aren't open to the fact that A, the paranormal really does exist, and B, that you have psychic abilities. I think most people would have been like putting a for sale sign in the yard and moving,
Well, but then a lot of people would have just chalked it up as, especially if they're not open, that the child just fell down the steps.
Right.
That the child slipped and fell.
No, my mom believed me.
Yeah. Mom saw it happening.
Well, it helps that she saw it happening. True, but yeah.
Yeah.
What other paranormal or psychic things do you remember from your childhood?
Well, we did talk about the other day that ball of light. You reminded me about that because I was in the living room just sitting there like watching TV or something. And it was like quiet, just quiet day. And out of absolutely nowhere, there was just this little ball of light that like zoomed into a open cardboard box. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And it made a noise too whenever it hit. It sounded like bells. And I don't know if it's because I don't know if anything was in the box but it was like something hit inside the box and moved it a little and made sound. I was the only one in the room that saw it, but you heard it and you came in the room. You're like, what was that? And I was like, it's a ball of light. It just went into the box. I don't know. I was very calm about it, but it's like the ball of light, it's just in the box.
So Tinkerbell basically flew in the room and hit the box, and you went alarmed.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Who do you think the ball of light was?
I have no idea.
It was really strange because I was facing the doorway from the kitchen, facing the doorway to the living room, and I just happened to have caught what I saw, a tail in glitter of something go by into the doorway. I didn't see the whole ball. I just saw I know that's a weird description, but it was like a shooting star, how it has a tail, is what I saw, was a tail, and heard the jingle of the bells, and the box hit, you heard the jingle, the box rocked a little bit, and I said, what on earth are you throwing in there? And she's like,
Nothing.
It was a ball. I didn't throw it. It wasn't me. I don't know what.
Was there a bell in the box?
I don't think so.
But
No.
I can't tell you, but I don't think there was.
Nobody wanted to go look in the box. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I just don't remember.
well, she was talking about this ball that hit into the box, so I went and looked in the box. There was nothing in there. You have to remember that when she was real little,
So no bell or anything.
right, when she was real little, she loved climbing in boxes, just like a cat. So,
Well, maybe when she was real little, she was going in she was playing with the little ball of light in the box.
maybe.
Who knows?
But it was a really strange incident, I mean, we don't know what the bells meant. There weren't bells in the box.
Yeah.
It was definitely something went into the box.
To my knowledge, I mean, I wouldn't have known.
Most people signify bells with angels.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, usually bells are tied to angels. So did you ever research, Kim, preparing for the podcast, what bells meant?
No, I'm sorry, I did not do that. I
I'm just
was.
curious because, well, I mean, usually that's what falls into your mind is when you hear, of course, that kind of goes from the old movie. Every time you hear a bell, an angel gets its wings, but bells and angels usually go together. So I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I didn't do research on that. I was just amazed
Well,
at
don't
this.
don't apologize for that. I was just curious. Nothing to apologize for. I'm so sorry, Katrina. I did not research bells.
How did you feel about that though, Katrina, when that happened?
I was just, I think I was more shocked than anything because I was like, I don't know, I thought you were messing around with something. And it was just like, it wasn't you, it wasn't me, then who was it? And yeah, I was surprised, I was shocked. I think my little child brain was like, fairies are real.
Oh, they are.
Yeah. But I was like, well, I'm not going to get in trouble for throwing a little ball of light into, because it wasn't me. Definitely a very memorable experience.
I would think so. I mean, seeing a ball of light like that and getting, it obviously was able to move, had enough energy to manifest, to move about the room, to move a box and make a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound like, a normal entity. That's what I'm saying. It might have been more of the angelic realm just because it had all that energy and did a lot of things.
And that would make sense, especially since this is the house that had the thing in the basement, and that would also penetrate dreams, the bad thing that was in the house. So that would
Mm-hmm.
make sense. You would have some.
Some angelic protection.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that. Anything else, Katrina, that stands out that you remember or your mom jogged your memory about growing up?
She's really good at that. Well, if we're talking paranormal too, I remember mom getting attacked by a peanut butter jar, which sounds really silly, but I mean, it was like something picked up that peanut butter jar and threw it at her.
Hey, if the Stay Puft
It
Marshmallow
was
Man and
awful.
Ghostbusters can destroy the world, a jar of Jiffy
The
can do
peanut
the
butter
same.
jar can attack my mom. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that very vividly because I was watching her dig around in the cabinet because we were going to get a snack or something. And I just watched this peanut butter jar just out of nowhere. It was like it came parallel to the shelf, like just out of the thing, and then dropped onto her foot. It was really rude and disrespectful.
Well, Kim, were you looking
But
for peanut butter?
No.
Okay, because like when I was making the cinnamon rolls and the cinnamon shot out of the cabinet and hit me in the shoulder, I was actually looking for the cinnamon. So I didn't know if maybe that's what,
like misplaced energy or
yeah, or it was trying to be helpful but overshot it.
could have.
Because that's what happened with me with the cinnamon. The cinnamon came shooting out, and then I was doing an EVP session at the time because I could sense that there were things in the house with me at that particular time. And after it happened, I said, "Well, that wasn't very nice." And when I went back and listened, I heard, "No, it wasn't."
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. But so but it wasn't a malicious. No, it wasn't. It wasn't like, yeah, no, it wasn't. Try to get it. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, no, it wasn't. So it was an accident for me. But I don't know if your peanut butter situation was an accident.
Yeah. No, I wasn't looking for the peanut butter when that
Okay, I
took
was
place.
curious because
Yeah. No. Weird things happened there.
Yeah, a lot of weird things happened there.
well, I never liked the stairs in that house. Never did like the stairs.
No,
No.
no, the stairs were a problem.
Yeah, they had a creepy vibe.
Mm-hmm. So anything else from the childhood that you remember? We used to have a lot of things.
Yeah, we would have a lot of brain waves that just were the same, so that was fun. I guess.
Not used to, you still do.
Yeah, we still do. And I guess
It's not a used to thing.
if you're being skeptical about it, people can just say, "Oh, well, you guys are just really close because I'm your only child and we spent a lot of time together." But I mean, it was weird for a lot of people to just hear us say the same thing at the same time, or us come up with like the same answer on the spot. Even Dad would be like, That's weird. Don't speak in stereo like that. It's creepy.
Yeah.
We're the twins from The Shining.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. You both have abilities, and you grew up together. You grew up, and you basically guys did grow up together because, raising a child, there's a bond there. But I think you tapped into you were definitely born wide open, Katrina,
Mhm.
with your abilities. And so you both probably just started doing it, not realizing you were linking each other psychically.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there are times
Yeah.
where my friend Sierra, we were in the car, and I don't even remember if we were telling her about it or what, and then it just happened. But we said something in exactly the same tone at the same time. It was just the same energy, just right out there in the open. She's sitting there in the backseat like, what? I've never heard people do that before. She's like, did you guys practice that?
And we gave her the
No.
same, no, we didn't.
It just
happens.
happens.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you guys have been creeping people out for the last how many years?
At least 20.
Well, it's always good to have a party game, so that could be your party game.
Yeah.
If you get your mom to a party.
My little party trick. Hey guys, watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also not so much in my childhood, but more in my like teenage to adult life. We're just in each other's minds all the time.
Which is a scary place to be for her sometimes, to be in my mind.
It works the same way.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, we're just in there, just talking to each other. She'll be like, Katrina, text your mother. And I'm like, hey, Mom, in a little text. And then I'll do the same thing to her. I'll be like, man, I miss my mommy. I wish she would message me. And then she'll send me a text.
You two are a mess.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. So how do your friends act around you now because you have abilities? And
What do your friends know? You have abilities.
What do my friends know?
do your friends know?
Some of my friends know. Some of my friends, it just has never come up. Like Kayla, who we told about this podcast. She had no idea until you told her about the podcast.
I outed you so bad.
And she was like, Kat has psychic abilities? You never told me that. And I was like, well, I don't sit here
not
and
what you lead with.
advertise it, I'm not trying to make money off of it. I just live and things happen. But some of my friends do know. Like my friend Ducky, he also has some psychic stuff going on there. Shout out to Ducky in North Carolina.
Ducky!
Ducky from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has some like psychic abilities as well. And we talk about it. We bonded a lot in college about it actually, and we're still friends to this day. And of course, your bonus child knows.
Yes, bonus child knows.
She's experiences it many times.
Yes.
I was going to say, how could she not know?
Yeah. Yeah, she's been around for like most of my life. So
First grade.
Yeah, she'd have to be a La La Land if she hadn't figured it out by now.
Yeah. But yeah, some of my friends do. Some of them just, it just hasn't come up.
Well, you don't need to let everybody know anyway.
Yeah, they'll find out. They'll figure it
Yeah.
out eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends that don't know about this podcast, and they don't know that I'm psychic because, it's not something that they need to know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And if they need to know, they'll find out. It's fine.
Yeah. If they're supposed to find out, they'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't need to know every aspect of your life, but those that are close to you, need to know because it's going to show up.
Right.
It'll be out there.
But since she was little, because she didn't go to preschool, she went right into kindergarten. But I would say since kindergarten on, her friends have always come to her for their advice, for the empathy, the empath in her has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always, using her as someone to always talk to and to have the compassion and the such that the empath has, the emotional empath has.
That is very true. I always had people come and ask me for advice or just like dump all their stuff on me and be like, oh yeah, here's all the things that are happening for me right now. And that's, I mean, it still happens. I still just sit here and I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
And as a child, you're like, can be overwhelmed with that because, some even children have overwhelming things in their lives that they're going to dump on you. Or
Mm-hmm.
high school was horrible. The amount of things that people came up to me and said on what was going on in their life. And I'm like going, okay, I'm not even your friend. Okay. It's like,
Yeah. The I'm not even your friend is still like happening to this day.
yes.
Because I mean, I work with the public. I work in retail. At my first retail job, oh my gosh. It's like you're standing there at a register just checking people out and they tell you their life story. I'm like, wow,
Yes.
that's cool. There were days where I had like 100 customers and at least half of them would tell me just so much information about their life that I really don't need to
Yeah.
know, and that I don't know
Right.
if it was therapeutic for them, but I hope it was.
Well, they sensed that they could unload on you, and you as an empath more than likely absorbed
Mm-hmm.
how they were feeling, and they felt better.
Mm-hmm. I've always
'Cause
been very absorbent.
I mean, I'm not sure if I should congratulate you on that or not, because that sounds really weird.
Yeah, weird sentence.
I'm very absorbent. I'm better than Bounty.
I'm the quicker picker upper now.
I was waiting for that. I had it going on in my head, like someone picked this up. I should run with it. But because I worked retail for 30 years in the jewelry industry, and being psychic and being empath, it helped my sales.
Oh yeah.
Because people, first of all, you can develop a sense of trust with someone but you also you kind of get the inside scoop on what they're really looking for. But you do have the ones that just keep on talking and talking. And I kind of learned, and I know this is probably rude, but when I was in a jewelry store at a mall setting, and I learned that if I would kind of take a couple steps towards the door, they'd follow me and continue talking. And basically, I'd walk them outside the store, and they'd be in the mall. And then when they stopped, I'd say, okay, well, thank you so much. Have a great day. And I would go back in, and they kind of looked a little concerned on how they ended up outside the store. But it was like, take a couple steps, they follow. Take a couple steps, they follow. I mean, it was a process, but
Yeah, you get them out eventually.
yeah, that's how I had to develop kind of my own little, okay, I can't take any more of your stuff. I'm full, so I need to get you out of the store, and there's no reason for you to come back in, really, right?
Right.
So it might have been rude, but it was kind of my own self-preservation, like, okay, we're done here. I can't do any more. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's the beauty of her working as a cashier at that point in time, is that once the transaction was done and there's a line behind them, they have to go.
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
Yeah. I got very good at, okay, see you later.
Yeah. And I mentioned on a previous podcast, when I first started out where I'm working now, I worked with people dealing with, as a cashier. And during my training process, they had to have someone with me at all times because we dealt with large amounts of money. And people would just start, my daughter, this is what happened. She died, and this is how she died. And she went upstairs and went to take a shower, never came. And it was just kind of like, okay, all right, well, she's with you. It's okay. She wants you to know you're okay. And the person that's training me is looking at me like, what's going on here? And then after the person finished the transaction and they left, he was like, what was that about? And I went, I don't know. I mean, they heard I don't know a lot because I'd be like, I don't know. Because it's like, I'm not going to tell you what's going on.
I don't know.
I don't know how you're going to take it, for one thing. And people think that when you're psychic, you're a fortune reader and you can, well, why haven't you won the lottery? And why are you not doing this? It's like that's not the information I'm being given.
Yeah.
So it's you kind of keep it quiet because people don't really understand it.
Yeah. I get that every once in a while. It's like, oh, you're psychic. Why don't you know the next lottery numbers and stuff like that? And people just don't understand that that's not how it works.
Yeah. It's because I'm not a fortune teller.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't control the hits that you get. You can't control the information you gather. That's why everybody has different abilities. They do different things, your Aunt Julie, myself, and your mom, we do things similar, but we also do different things as well in our psychic developments. You know, we have different gifts, different strengths, and the same is going to be for you. I mean, you've got a lot of things like your mom, but you've got a lot of things like Aunt Julie.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a mediumship ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I'm not too sure you're happy about, but you do have it.
I have it all right. It's just it's
Yeah.
not one that I exercise too much.
And that's okay. I mean, because if you're not comfortable exercising it and you're not ready for that stage, that's fine. And if you may never want to, but it peeks through. It comes through for you a lot. You don't always talk about it, but it does.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm like, ooh, one day I will hop into that, but not now.
Yeah, not now, not today. So how is it being away for the first time at college, away from your family? Because, you know, I don't know about you, but in my 20s, my abilities seem to ramp back up again. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think in high school, I kind of had to tone it down a little bit because it's just too much energy. But in my 20s, it kind of like, hello, we're here. We didn't go anywhere. And so I don't know if that happened, if your abilities ever ebbed a little bit in high school, or were you still straight open all the way through to college?
I think I was pretty straight open all the way through. Yeah, because in high school I
Yeah.
got a lot of the same things that I got in college. It was different going into like moving away from home and not having my parents there and everything, because your home is a different energy field and you've built like boundaries there and it's, you know, everyday life, and having to
You're
rebuild
more
that and put
protected.
that up for the first time is like hard and scary. But I think I adjusted fairly well, and I definitely took it in stride going to a campus that was built on a burial ground. So that was cool.
Oh, I bet you saw lots of fun things.
Yeah, heard lots of fun things too.
You know, what's funny is we know that there's a lot of campuses that are haunted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like the older the university or college, the more haunted it is. And then where you went, you had performing arts was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to draw entities as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Little bit of fun fact, I guess, for you. Our campus, we had two campuses at our college. There was the regular campus, and then they kicked all of the theater nerds onto their own separate campus because we were being too annoying, I guess. But,
Well,
but
breaking out into song is kind of annoying.
yeah. So they put us, you know, like a mile away, but they put us on our own little campus right on the Mississippi River.
Oh, so
And
you have water as a conduit.
it is. Water is a conduit. And
Yes, yes.
this specific, when they were breaking ground and everything, supposedly, I don't know all of the full history. I didn't have to take the history class that's centered on specifically this town. Supposedly, there were bodies recovered during building and like refixing the area and everything. And that's how they found out that it was on burial ground. But part of our campus for the theater kids was actually an old seminary building, and it's still called the seminary building.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing, I mean, the chapel is still technically there. They've refinished it, but all of the original stained glass is in there. The building itself is so old. It's they had to do a little bit of reconstruction on it because the bricks were falling apart a little.
Yeah.
But they still use that building. And boy, that was a creepy building to be in. We had classes in there and it was scary.
Well, and churches are haunted as well. Like churches,
Yes.
hospitals, theaters. Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
so
people
we
don't think
have
about that aspect of a church to be haunted, but sometimes people go back to where they love the most, and
yeah,
that could be that church. Yeah.
it could be. It could be that church. They also, you know, they had maybe like a funeral service in there where all of their loved ones are there. And that's a very
Right.
large anchor for, you know, a spirit
Yeah.
to hang
And
around
that
that place.
energy, yeah, that energy lingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a whole set of circumstances where theater, for one, is associated with paranormal things, right? Next to water, which is conduit, and the Mississippi River, giant river water source, inside old church that has had reconstructive surgery. It's just
Yeah, anytime you do construction and renovations, you're amping things up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just a perfect formula for paranormal activity. And of course, you had students that were like, oh, we're going to go to the haunted seminary building at 3 a.m. and we're going to do a ghost hunt. And some of them were just like being silly about it and everything. But more often than not, you would catch paranormal activity in that building in the nighttime or even sometimes during the day. I had like a door open for me during the day whenever I was in there, and I was like, oh, thanks. Sure. You
I
know?
had that happen. I had that happen once camping when our resident ghost went with us, and it's a little startling at first because you're like expecting to see somebody on the other side with the door. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, thank you. Okay.
All right,
You don't want to be
thanks.
rude. They might
Yeah.
slam in your face. You're like, okay, thank you. Whoever did that.
Yeah, exactly. It was, I never had like a negative experience there, I would say. But there were definitely people who would mess around with like Ouija boards and stuff like that and just go in there and they're like, we're trying to stir up something bad.
I'm sure they did with the Ouija board.
And it was a very big thing among our little theater community to go into the seminary building and just tear it up, just try really hard to get something to happen, which is disrespectful to the spirits, I think. And I never really took part in the let's go in there at 3 a.m. and find the devil or anything like that. But I would always approach the building with like much respect because there was a lot that happened in that building and you gotta respect the people that are still there.
So with theater, it seems like that there's been a strong history throughout the centuries of paranormal things or energies happening. I mean, because look at all the superstition tied to performances and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you can't do Macbeth, is it?
Yeah, you can't say Macbeth is what it is while you're doing a production. And that's a fun one. We'll talk about that one first because I think it's the most widely known amongst theater students and actors and professionals. So Macbeth, the play, is cursed, they say, because I think the history behind it is like the first performance, somebody actually died because the prop knife was a real knife or something. And if you think about it, this was like, what, the 1500s? That this real knife, probably.
Yeah,
People got stabbed at that point.
I, I'm sorry, that's not funny, but I'm trying not to laugh. We're going to cast you as Macbeth, okay?
Yeah. But yeah,
just go with it.
Just go with it. Just keep acting, and they just yeah. It started way back with like the first performances of it, Shakespeare's Macbeth, and it has been widely renowned that it is cursed. Now, coming into like modern day, what does that mean for theater? If you are, and there's a lot of different theories, and every theater has their own specific rule about Macbeth, but the one that I've always followed, and I think we were taught, not in like a classroom setting, of course, but we were taught this one, is that if you are in a show and you are a part of that production somehow, lights, sound, an actor, whatever, and you are in the building that show is taking place in, if it's your rehearsal space or if it's like the final space of the show, like the final performance theater, you cannot, from the first rehearsal to the very end in those spaces, say the name Macbeth, because it puts a curse on your show. It's not the ghost of William Shakespeare. It's just angry, vengeful energy is what it's supposed to be because of all of the...
Well, maybe it's one of the people that got stabbed.
It could be. Very well. And I think that's one of the theories, is that it's like the ghost of the person that died whenever they first put on Macbeth. But it can also be people psyching themselves out with the energy of it. And that's more so what they teach nowadays, since we've moved on from, oh yeah, you have ghosts in your blood, you should do drugs about it, as science, we've moved on to, oh, it's just people like psyching themselves out and freaking out. But I still lean on the side of, if you're putting there's so many years of energy behind a word that you say in the theater, that manifests as something on its own, much like how like poltergeists
Absolutely.
manifest. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes.
So I don't say Macbeth when I'm working on shows. Even when I'm not in the theater, I don't say the word. I just say Lady M. Or if you're talking about the Shakespeare play, I'm like, yeah, the one with Macduff in it, where Macduff dies. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Now known as Macduff.
Yeah. But it's a very...
That's an interesting one. I had never heard of that. That's
Really?
very interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's one of the main ones that you find out like in high school theaters. You don't say Macbeth, because if you do, things will go wrong during your show.
And it has happened
It has
because
happened.
in the high school plays, somebody thought, hey, let's give it a try. And they tried.
And that was the
things started.
Light, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I was on stage for that one. One of our high school plays, someone said it, as Mom just said. And during one of our, not final rehearsals, but like we're getting there, we were in dress rehearsals, we were in costume.
Yeah.
The old, that theater has old lights anyway, and they use glass gels, which, theater jargon terminology for you, a gel is like a color that goes in front of a light. It's usually made out of plastic. In the olden days, it was colored glass. Mm-hmm. And our school still had the colored glass gels. Those were in front of the set lights on the top of the stage.
Up at the ceiling, from the ceiling.
Up in the ceiling. One of the glass gels fell out of the light, which I've never seen happen before, and crashed behind my castmate and I, and got us. I mean, I was bleeding a little bit on my legs, and he had pants on, but I think it still got up his shirt a little bit and got his back, and that was scary. So we had to uncurse it. There is a very easy way to reverse the Macbeth, but it's a process, and you have to turn over your left shoulder 3 times, I think it is. I haven't done it in a while. You have to say Macbeth 3 times. You have to turn the other way 3 times. Then you have to spit over your left shoulder and then do a lap around the theater. And that's like how you undo the curse. And it works.
I wonder who came up with that.
I don't know.
So nothing else happened after that?
No, after...
I don't think so.
There were little things that happened up to that point. And when that point happened, that's when like, all right, whoever said it, we need to take care of this. And they took care of it, and the show went on. It went really well. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, it was Katrina's first stage performance as an actor.
Oh, it was. Yeah. That was the first play I was in.
Your first lead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was...
It was scary, but
it was.
We got it taken care of, and it was fine. And I think as well, I should say this, I think all of the theaters have a different way that they undo the Macbeth curse. And I think a lot of people are like, well, everyone does it differently, so it can't be real. But it falls under the same stretch of like, oh, it's been around for so long that the energy that comes with it is what's causing these problems. So in whatever way that you can dispel that energy and get rid of that looming, force that's above it, however that works for you is what's going to work.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was neat stuff. I know I'm talking a lot, sorry. But
Wait, well, you are the guest, and so therefore you should talk.
This is my podcast now. With any theater, there are also theater ghosts. I know you said that every theater has its haunt, which is very true. There is almost always a ghost in every theater, even brand new built ones. And they manifest in several different ways. A lot of ways that you can find out if a theater is haunted is if there's a ghost seat. Very often, if everybody leaves a performance, and theater chairs, they usually fold down, the seat part does. If you leave a performance, or even if you're coming into a performance and there's a seat already stuck down, there's a ghost there. That's the theater ghost seat. They're going to watch the performance that night. How exciting. Theater, a lot of people think that it's just like a silly thing that tech students do, or like the tech that's working on the show, the crew just put a seat down for the ghost or whatever. No, we don't do that. If you come in and there's a seat already down, it got there on its own, and you shouldn't sit there. A lot of people don't know you shouldn't sit there, but you shouldn't sit there. Someone's already sitting there. We also always, and this should be practiced in every theater, I don't know if they all do it, but they should, you always leave a ghost light on the stage. A lot of theaters have a preset light cue that is every light is out except for one single beam of light on the stage, and that's for the ghosts so they can have their performance after we're done. Because if they can have their performance when we're not on the stage, then they won't interfere with our performance that is going on the stage.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right? Yeah.
Because they're there to act out what they want to act out, and you want to act out what you want to act out, and they don't always go together.
Exactly, yeah. But there's also another handful of curses and, oh no, this is scary, you can't do that on stage. Like, I had someone in theater whose rule of thumb was you cannot put your left shoe on until we're at places because it would mess up the show. And I was like, that's a little silly, but sure, whatever you believe is what you believe. I'm gonna put my left shoe on. There's a lot of reason why a theater would be haunted too. For us, where I went to college, all 2 of our performing centers were haunted because river and burial ground, and of course there's spirits walking that place. It's a very old place. But a lot of times when you go into a theater and it's a new theater on ground that has never had history or something, like it's been cleansed or something, there's still going to be some kind of haunt or ghost or spirit there. Because of the way that energy manifests, there will be some kind of energy or spiritual being. A lot of spirituality comes from emotion and, empathy, being an empath, feeling all of the emotions that people give to you or throw at you and processing that. A lot of what actors do is very similar to being an empath. You sit there and you have to take this energy that a different actor is throwing at you, and you have to mix it with the words that are on the page, and that produces a realistic feeling. It produces real emotions. You're on stage crying, and you're crying, you're feeling that hurt that this character is going through. So it makes sense in a building where you do that every day for 2 weeks or so, that something would have to manifest out of that. All of that energy and those emotions need some place to go. So there could be poltergeist activity in a theater. There's another geist that's just emotions, where like you walk into a room and you're hit with it and you start to feel something immediately. I don't remember the term for it. But something like that would happen. It's just, there's an amalgamation of just feelings from all of these people that are showing the audience what to feel, and the audience's reaction plays into that as well. If you're so moved by this performance that you're feeling emotional and you're feeling like crying, and it's, you're having such a emotional reaction to it, that adds to the pot as well. And it's just a very energetic void. It's there, and it's all like just laying over everybody, and nobody cleanses theaters. Nobody smudges a theater or brings in a priest or anything to clear any of that out ever. I've never seen it happen. I'm sure there are some where it does, but I've never seen that. So it's all sitting there and growing for years even, until that theater's out of use. So it makes sense that there's something in every theater because there's so much happening.
Well, and I also think that you have a lot of actors that do have psychic abilities.
Oh, yeah.
Being an empath would greatly impact your performance as an actor. And I think that when you have abilities, you're like a bright light in the darkness, and you draw entities to you.
Yes, very
And I
much.
could see having multiple empathic people in one spot. You're going to be drawing in things.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to joke with my ex-husband because he would bring home strays, is what I called it. It's like, okay, what entity did you bring home? I mean, why are you, but for some reason, they would attach themselves to him, and then I'd have to get rid of them because it's like, quit bringing home strays. And I know that's not respectful to call it that, but it was like, you don't belong here. You need to go.
Right.
And I think it was just an entity that resonated with his energy.
Yeah.
Which didn't resonate with my energy.
Well, he was at a different vibrational level than what you are,
yes.
too, so he was always going to bring stragglers.
He was always, it was just like, oh my gosh, again? It'd always be like,
another one?
Yeah, I mean, I had to salt the house. After I smudged, I had to salt to prevent. And so then he'd complain that there's a guy in the garage keeps, following him around in the yard. I'm like, well, I didn't salt the garage. Okay. But I think that you're going to attract certain things with your vibration.
Yeah. I very much agree with that. And that's why a lot of actors have like a pre-show ritual that they do. And it's just their personal putting up boundaries, and, they meditate for a little bit and stuff like that. And they say it's just, it puts me in the zone. But really, I think what it does for them is it clears their field. It's like, okay, let's get ready to open up to this, this emotional time we're going to have. And it just resets and
the grounding and getting their psychic abilities just right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes sense. I'm just saying.
I mean, I'll give you an example of, you could have something in the house and not be aware. When I came last November and I'm going to do a craft show with your mom, in the local town, and I'm unloading and I glance up, I'm like, oh great, there's a man at the top of the stairs. Okay, well, I'm not dealing with this, and I finished bringing, we get all my stuff in and we have the kitchen table. I said, Kim, who's the man at the top of the stairs? And Kim didn't know who was at the top of the stairs.
Right.
He was keeping himself hidden from her.
Yeah.
But he was curious when I showed up because he could tell me energy.
Yeah, he was like, hello?
And everybody else seemed to know the man at the top of the stairs. It was just like, why is there a man at the top of the stairs? But that's
he's just hanging out.
And he didn't belong with the house. And he didn't have a bad vibe to him. It was just, he was very curious on who I was, but just like, why is there a man at the top of the stairs? He shouldn't be here, And of course, I asked you the question because he was up in your domain. And I'm like, well, why you got a man up there? It's like,
who's that man you've got in your room?
Yeah. He's moved into the spare room up there, He's hanging out.
He's just hanging out.
Yeah. But that just shows where it's easy for energy to come into a place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's easy for things to attach
either they
themselves.
know you or are attracted to the energy of the vibe of the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so.
So what else in the theater? Any other rituals or scary things or things people should know about before they go to the theater? Don't sit in the seat that's already down. Anything else?
Oh, the microphones and radio frequencies and stuff. This is a fun one. So oftentimes you have several different ways that a theater could be set up with like microphone systems. It's all like wireless mics usually. And ours that I work with now for the community theater I work with, it's radio frequencies, which we learned recently can be a problem. But it's really interesting, I think, because so here's the thing. We have our little radio system that does our wireless mics, and there is always a problem with those mics. There's like sometimes this like crazy feedback where it just booms out of nowhere. There's times where the microphones just for some reason do not transmit anything, even though it's turned on. It has its battery full. It was working 2 seconds ago. And there are other ways that you can do microphones. I personally prefer like the Bluetooth ones, but they have their drawbacks too, and the theater's not set up for it. So we've got our radio frequencies. It's really interesting to find that whenever I told the ghost, I almost just full named her right there, but I think that would be too specific. There's a ghost, and she has a name in that theater, of course. She was one of the founders of the theater building for the college where we do our community theater. And so we always refer to her very respectfully with Mrs. and then her last name. And I found it very interesting whenever I walked in there and I said, Mrs. College lady name, would you please help us with our little radio frequency problem that we're having? Because several of our microphones were just not interacting well with each other. And I was like, it would be really cool if when my mom came to see the show, if all the microphones worked really well. And I think they did.
They did.
They worked really well that night.
They did.
So that's something fun, because you don't really think about it. But, you know, like spirit boxes are just radios that are scanning so fast.
That's correct.
And that's how the
Right.
ghost communicates with you. And I'm like, well, radio frequencies, like 30 different radio frequencies going in a room all at once, could very easily
That's
be,
a lot of energy.
yeah, that's a lot of energy, and that could very easily be interfered with by something floating through the air or that wants to mess with it. So I guess my advice there is give a little grace to the the sound techs that are working the audio, because sometimes there may be external forces.
Yes, that's not meaning to tamper with it, but it's using the energy and therefore tampering with it.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, Kim, did you have any questions for your daughter?
No, I think I can always have a conversation with her later. So,
Do you have anything pertaining to this podcast to ask your daughter?
I do have one question. Do you sometimes wish that you didn't have these abilities, or
Ooh, tough question.
do they get in your way sometimes of things that you want to do?
They do get in the way sometimes, because I've not been a super anxious person. You know, I go on stage and I do theater things and I just kind of live my life and I am who I am, and it's like, whatever. I'm not usually nervous about things like that, but I feel nervous energy from people a lot.
Same.
Yeah. that comes with the oh my gosh, I couldn't say the word right there. The empath within me. I feel a lot of people's energies, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's like, wow, I can't go in that store right now because there is something going on and I'm not going to be a part of it. And you know, it gets in the way in small ways like that. There's definitely been like shows that I wanted to audition for, but going out there and auditioning is scary as an empath because I'm already a little nervous, and then all of these like 15 people in the room with me are extremely nervous, and I'm feeling all that they're feeling. So then it's like I've got the nerves of, 18,000 million people just running through my body, and I'm like, oh, I cannot do that right now. And then I get scared, and then I can't do it, which is weird because I audition.
Yes.
I auditioned a lot whenever I was in high school and college. So it's, I'm used to it, but I'm not used to the different people's energies, which is why now I only audition if someone I know is going with me, because I can kind of feed off of them.
Gotta put your bubble up.
Yeah. Yep.
Have you tried doing not just grounding, but the protective bubble around you before you go and audition? Or do you think that would interfere with the emotions you need to use to audition?
It's a tricky thing because, yes, I have put up a little protective barrier before an audition before, and it was fine. But I do think that was one of my weaker auditions because I wasn't tapping into that which is around me. I was just using what I had in my brain, and it wasn't the same. So it helps for sure, at least in the cattle call room where everybody's sitting, and then I'm not as nervous. But then I go into, the one-on-one audition space, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to tap into my energy fields to get into this. And yeah, it's just finding the balance between having the barrier up and still allowing the energy flow that's tricky. But That's also, I think, a little bit why I prefer being on the other side of the table and directing the shows, is because I know all of these people are nervous and scared, and for some of them this is their first audition, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get yelled at in this audition. But then they walk into the room and I feel their energy and I'm just like, hi, how are you? Let's have a conversation and let's tone some of that down before I use the empath to slurp some to absorb, as we said earlier, because I'm bounty now, to absorb. I use my my empath within me to take some of their anxious away so that they have a more successful and a better audition, and it helps them to further their acting in the future. I just think I think it's a great spot for me to be at. So I sit there a lot.
So you're kind of helping them along without them realizing what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to tell them either, because some of them will be like, hey.
Yeah, people, like, because we've talked about it on previous podcasts that just because you get a hit doesn't mean you should share it.
Mm-hmm.
And I read people a lot and I don't say anything because I just feel like, because I sometimes do it without even realize I'm doing it. It's just so natural to read people.
Right.
That you don't necessarily say what you got when you read them. Just because you do it doesn't mean you need to. And I really don't let the people know, because they get, when it has happened where I've let them know, it's because something really urgent's coming through, and then they're like uncomfortable around you for a little while until they forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's a coworker or someone you have to work with for a couple weeks, they're kind of like really self-conscious. It's like, I can't read your mind all the time. It's okay.
I don't know what you're thinking right now. It's all right. You still have secrets.
Okay. But and it's hard, I think, sometimes when I think it's easier to do what you do. You've already picked up what's going on. You've already got your little read on them, and now you're putting them at ease. You're just kind of doing what you're supposed to do to help them, and they don't know about it. They're not going to get all weird.
Mm-hmm.
about it and act funny towards you, because it's just human nature when you do something and they don't understand, especially if you have someone who doesn't want to see a spirit, doesn't want to know anything about anything that supernatural or paranormal or whatnot, and then you come up with a reading and then it really freaks them out.
Yeah, they get scared of what they don't understand. So yeah, sometimes you just let it be.
Yes. I had a funny situation where our cousin has been working on her psychic development and stuff, and she was all excited. She goes, I got a hit. And she was all excited. She was telling me what had happened and everything. And I said, that's great. Guess what? She goes, what? I said, I'm glad you're excited about it. I said, you know why? She goes, why? I said, because now you're going to get more.
Yep. Well, yeah, she's opening herself up for it. So
yes. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, now you're going to get more hits. Good luck. I hope you're grounding. But it's just like when you start acknowledging when you see a ghost, more ghosts show up.
Mm-hmm. Because they know that you can see them. They know you can hear them. They know you feel them. Yeah.
Yes. That's why I act like I can't see them, and
It's pretend.
But the more you interact, the more it's going to happen. And the same. Yeah. It's like, well, that's great. Spirit now knows you're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
Have fun.
She keeps waiting for us to call her out on the podcast because she listens to the podcast. And so that was my way of calling you out. You know who you are, cousin. You've been called out.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to share with us, Katrina, about your abilities, about superstitions in the theater, growing up with a psychic mom? Anything, because that's the flip of raising a psychic child, that you're also growing up with a psychic mom. You can't get away with things.
No, I was just gonna say that's something I'd bring up, is that, like, it's cool having a psychic mom, but I'm not getting away with anything. There was, even if the idea of lying about something got into my mind, nope, wouldn't happen, because she'd know the truth before
she would know.
Said it. She'd know so fast. So kept me honest, but yeah.
I also think we're terrible liars. I think
it runs in the family.
Yeah, we're just terrible liars. We're not good at it. That's why we don't do it. But growing up with a psychic mom, you just can't. Your grandma didn't really talk about being psychic, but she did a lot of stuff. Like she
Yep.
knew.
Mm-hmm.
She knew when you lied.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, yeah.
now there is the whole fact that as children we don't lie well and we give it away, but there's also facts that she knew. I mean, she just knew. It's kind of like you know what you know what you know kind of thing, and she
Yeah.
just knew. So it's like, okay.
For sure. There is one cool thing that I did want to share on the podcast that I don't think a lot of people really think into too much. I had a theater professor who I took a voice class with, and not voice class as in singing, it was voice for the actor is what it was called. It wasn't accents or dialects, it was more so exploring your voice and your vocal range and where your voice comes from, how to alter it, how to sound different, and really we like dove into the context behind ways that the voice can sound. I would suggest if anybody wants a fun little spiritual connection to look up the Kristen Linklater vocal work. And you can find it on YouTube. It's just like voice exercises. It's like basically vocal warm-ups that you do. But the more that you dive into the science behind the voice and what that sounds like and how you get to where you are, she really breaks down the true sound of a human. You know, you grow up and you're like, oh, I can't sound like this because this doesn't get me the reaction that I want. Or, oh, if I sound lighter and prettier, then I will attract all of the boys. And it dives into like all of the societal things that affect the way that you end up sounding like as an adult. Our voice class was really much more like a spiritual discovery, which sounds crazy, and like how would you link those two things together? But it really made a lot of sense because the way that you breathe, you bring oxygen into your body and it pumps the blood through your veins, and that's how you live. Breathing is the base of life. So it makes sense that using your voice, which uses a lot of your breath, has so much power in who you are and how you appear to the world and how everything appears to you. I found, and Ducky took this class with me, which is why I bring it up, because he would know. He listens to the podcast too. So, but Ducky and I took this class together and we did a lot of the vocal exercises together outside of class. It was so interesting because you think about like a baby crying, right? And the scream that a baby lets out. It sounds so painful almost. But it doesn't really always hurt the baby. It's like a free sound. And Kristen Linklater talks about like that's the freest sound you will ever make is being a baby and crying because nothing in the world will convince you to sound different. That is your base sound. It's just like a baby crying. And then having to work past all of the tension that you bring into your throat or into your mouth, like your jaw. We found out that I have a lot of jaw tension. And that's why I talk the way that I do and I sound the way I do. My last resonator, as they say, is more tense than the rest of my vocal tract. And really, honestly, doing those vocal warm-ups became part of my barrier ritual. That sounds crazy. I know it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but just like sitting there and doing the grounding deep breaths and reaching the lowest part of my vocal register and working all the way up through it. I mean, it can be a very helpful experience because you're building your voice up and it puts all of this power behind what you're doing. It helps you command a room or command the energy. And it's very helpful. So if you're looking for help with that, finding a voice, commanding the energy, I definitely suggest looking into that kind of vocal work. It's really neat. Very spiritual.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And I'll put on Facebook who this person is, and
Yeah,
a
I'll
link
get you
to
a bio.
Yeah, get me the bio so that you can check that out. But just think about that. The whole description that she did is the whole chakra system.
It is.
But when you think about it, though, a lot of people, when you do your ohms and different chants, you're kind of doing things a little differently. So it kind of makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. That's just a really cool thing that I think not a lot of people would consider, is that the voice is such a base part of everything you do, and it's part of your spirituality too.
Yes, that it is.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Katrina, for getting up early
Of
and
course.
joining us on the podcast. Hopefully, we can have you back again.
I was just going to be
That was
quiet,
met.
but then I broke.
That
Yes.
was met with silence.
Yes, I will gladly come back.
Awesome. Kim, anything else from you?
No, I think that covers this episode. But if you'd like to reach us, if you have any questions, ideas, suggestions, you can reach us where, Carrie?
At PsychicBent Podcast on Facebook.
Or you can reach us by email at psychicbent1@gmail.com.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.
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 May your light shine bright. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to Psychic Bent. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.